April 27th, 1883. We are on the island of Crete, in what is now Greece, but at the time it was part of the Ottoman Empire. In a wealthy Greek family living on this island, a boy is born and named Nicholas Andreas Dandolos, also known as Nick Dandolos. This is the story of the most famous gambler in history. As we said, Nicholas was born into a wealthy family. His grandfather owned a successful shipping company, which was later managed by his father. They were considered one of the richest Greek families. Nick grew up surrounded by luxury, with everything he needed always provided. His father would often take him along to the company to learn how to run it in the future. But Nicholas went reluctantly. He found it boring, with no excitement or enjoyment. That's because he had been raised with everything handed to him. Nothing really held value for him anymore. Despite this, he was intelligent. He observed things carefully, especially history and philosophy. Over time, he developed a deep interest in understanding human behavior, something that would later become very useful. As he grew older, his father realized Nicholas was not suited to take over the family business. So he told him to go to America and study philosophy at the University of Chicago. Nicholas agreed. It was 1901. Airplanes didn't exist yet, so he traveled by ship to the United States. Once he arrived, his father set him up with a weekly allowance of $150, which was a huge amount at the time, equivalent to around $6,000 today. Nicholas entered a completely new world. Everything was different. There was freedom, entertainment, and experiences he had never seen before. Among all these, one thing caught his attention: casinos. He had money, and casinos loved people like him. But Nicholas was different. He didn't gamble blindly. He carefully studied the games and observed how others played, trying to understand how to win. He didn't just gamble in casinos, he also bet on horse races. Even with his large weekly allowance, he was very disciplined. He didn't lose money, he actually increased it. Unlike most gamblers who constantly lose, he won more than he lost. Nicholas was a risk taker, but calculated. He never gambled recklessly. He once said, "It's okay to lose big, as long as you win bigger." It didn't take long before he had won hundreds of thousands of dollars. His bank account was full. And what about university? He dropped out. He spent all his time gambling and betting, while his family had no idea. He became so successful in horse racing bets across the US and Canada that he was eventually blacklisted. Officials banned him because he kept winning, and they feared financial losses. So he returned to casinos, focusing on poker. Successful poker players understand people. More importantly, they control their expressions, so no one can read their hand. This is called a poker face. Nicholas mastered this. Poker is a psychological game. Luck matters, but not as much as in other games. Reading people and bluffing are key, and Nicholas excelled at both. He changed the way poker was played. He showed others how important psychology and bluffing were. That's why he became known as Nick the Greek. Eventually, he reached a point where he refused to go back to horse betting. Poker was where he understood how to win. He became a millionaire. He was also incredibly generous. If he won $100,000, he might give half of it as a tip to the dealer. While most gamblers hold tightly to their money, Nicholas didn't fear losing it. Dealers loved having him at their tables. This was the 1940s and 50s, a time when gambling was less manipulated than today. It wasn't like modern betting platforms designed to take people's money. Back then, skill actually mattered. Nicholas played with famous figures. People like Howard Hughes and Al Capone sat at the table with him, not to win, but to learn how he played. They placed smaller bets, knowing they would likely lose. Then came 1949, the year he faced one of his biggest losses. In a single night, he lost $4 million. What's remarkable is that he stood up from the table smiling and went home. What did he do with all the money he won? He didn't spend it on luxury, cars, or parties. He donated most of it to charity, keeping only what he needed. He even treated tipping dealers as a form of charity. He often said, "I don't play for money, I play for the thrill right before I win." Whether he won 1 million or 10 million didn't matter. He would give it away. That's why many say he wasn't a typical gambler. Most gamblers lose and become greedy when they win. He was different. As time passed, Nicholas aged. Around his 70s, his abilities began to decline. His memory weakened, and he could no longer apply his strategies effectively. He started losing more often. By 1956, at the age of 73, he had lost most of his wealth. But he didn't care. Even after losing almost everything, he continued playing, now at $5 tables instead of million-dollar games. And he enjoyed it just the same. For 10 years, he lived this simple life, playing small games like a retired man. Eventually, he stopped playing altogether. In 1966, at the age of 83, Nicholas Dandolos passed away. After his death, he was inducted into the Poker Hall of Fame. Even today, decades later, he is still remembered as the most famous gambler in history.